All right, Sarah, thank you for joining me. This is just such an amazing story. I actually was kind of taken back. I've seen a lot of things in my life and all that, but I have to admit that when I read your story, it actually affected me more than I had thought it would. And so I'm glad that we waited another day to interview, just because I needed to kind of myself have time to process. So I don't know how the viewers will feel about this, but I just wanted to start with just kind of where the story began, the book in Mastering Your Inner Game, the story that you wrote there. And you were 18, and I wanted to say too that I remember as I was reading the story thinking about my own 18th birthday, and I remember I was really put out because my dad forgot my birthday. That was my big event on my 18th birthday. And I just thought, oh my goodness, incredible, the story. So just let you get to your story. But let's start with your birthday present. Let's talk about that.
Okay, well, that's kind of where the story begins. And I do want to give a little bit of a disclaimer before we really get into it, because my story does involve an accident that for some people it can be very sensitive around. It's not a car accident.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you who have not read the book yet or are viewing this virtual summit before they get the book, my story about mental toughness and everything has to deal with an event in my life that was very tragic. And I still consider myself luckier than others, simply because there's other people who have to go through far worse stuff than I do. But just to clarify, and a little bit of a disclaimer, I was in a plane crash in 1996. It was a single engine plane. And for some people, I totally understand that just even thinking about something like that totally turns you off, and no hard feelings. I totally get it. Ever since the crash, I have met the gamut of people who are fascinated by it and want to hear more about it, to people who don't ever even speak to me again because they don't even want to have to think about that. And now all of a sudden I'm associated with it. So no hard feelings. If you turn off, this particular recording, I totally understand, and I wish you nothing but the best. Mm-hmm. So getting into it a little bit, one of my dreams when I was like in middle school, early high school, was to actually become a private pilot. I wanted to get my pilot's license. And I had grown up across the street from a gentleman and his wife and two daughters, and he was actually an instructor. He was a flight instructor, and that was like his passion. Flying was his passion. He was an engineer by day, and he flew in the evenings, afternoons, weekends, whenever he could get behind the yoke of the plane. And he absolutely loved it. So he kind of inspired me to continue learning while I was on the ground before, my parents would actually say yes to me taking lessons and things of that nature. And I thought I was going to have to wait until after I was 18 to be able to do it, because my mom was just so very much against it. And so I just did everything on the ground. I learned the calculations, I learned how to read maps, I learned about fuel balance, I learned, all the physics around it. And so I was very prepared for when I actually got the chance to go up in a single engine. And I was so excited. 2 days before, well, actually technically 3 days before my 18th birthday, my parents decided that we were going to go up to Pensacola. We were living in the Tampa Bay area. So it's only about a 2-hour flight in a small single engine aircraft. And we were going to go up there and visit some family and friends, spend the day up there, have some fun, fly up, and then fly back in the evening time, etc. And we ended up, it was kind of a last minute plan, but they thought that by doing this, it would give me a better chance to really understand the dynamics of what I would need to go through in order to get that private pilot's license. And I was really, really, really super excited about the whole thing. And I just couldn't wait. I couldn't even sleep that night because my parents said, hey, we're going to take this, we're going to have the pilot who used to live across the street from us, he's going to fly the plane. He knows a guy that he can rent it from, etc. And we're going to go up, we're going to have some fun, and you can even sit next to him so that you can learn more about what it takes to become a pilot. And so that's basically what we did. And so 2 days before my 18th birthday, my parents decided, that would be my present, would be to get the ball rolling on this and maybe even pay for lessons, at least part of it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just absolutely thrilled, absolutely thrilled. And we got ready, we took off. It started off being just a beautiful flight, nice and calm. It was cold because it was December in Florida and you're, traveling at like 8,000 feet in the air, etc. So it gets pretty chilly up there. My mom and dad were in the back and I was sitting up front with the pilot in the co-pilot seat. And at one point he even offered me the chance to go ahead and fly the plane just while we were nice and steady and level and everything. And I was so scared that I didn't take him up on the offer. I was like, no, I think today we're just going to learn more about what's going on here and just kind of kick back and relax. And then when we approached Pensacola International Airport, where we were going to land, is when we started having engine issues. And it basically, I'm not going to go into all the details of it, but it basically stopped working, it stalled out, and we crashed. And I will say, it's a very surreal moment when that happened, realizing that all of a sudden we're going to go from 2,000 feet up in the air down to the ground in a matter of seconds. And it was extremely scary. But it was also paralyzing at the time. There wasn't anything I could do. There wasn't anything I could say. There wasn't anything I could do except literally, it's like watching a horror movie on the screen. There's on the television or movie theater. You can't do anything about it. You can't warn somebody. You can't do anything. And you just have to watch it unfold. And it was terrifying. It really was. I've been in car accidents where I've experienced some of that surreal moment, but I'll tell you, those car accidents weren't nearly as scary as, this plane that literally dropped out of the sky.
Well, there's a certain amount of time, I imagine, too. In a car accident, there's less time to even prepare for that or whatever, whereas here you're just like falling. And you talked about in your story about the whole Bugs Bunny thing. I thought that was an interesting thing. So talk about that, like you were inside watching this thing happen.
Yeah, so it is very much like the old Bugs Bunny cartoons, which a lot of us, have grown up on, where you see him fighting with Marvin the Martian inside the airplane, and then it literally starts heading straight down towards the ground.
Yeah.
Not quite vertical. That's not exactly how gravity actually works in real life. But it was kind of the same kind of thing, watching the plane go down, head towards the ground, but unlike the Bugs Bunny cartoon where it stops right before it hits, we kept going. So it was very surreal. It's like all time stops. I could not tell you how long it took from the moment the engine stalled to the moment we crashed. I could not tell you how many seconds it took.
How long did it feel? What did it feel?
Honestly, it felt like about 2 seconds.
Okay.
But I know it was, based upon physics and, the calculations and stuff, it probably took closer to 10 seconds from the time that it stalled out to the time that we stopped on the ground, because we slid along because of the terrain of where we were. So I would say probably 10 to 15 seconds in all actuality. I've been in car accidents too, where it just seems like time stops and everything becomes slow motion.
Right.
But not quite as terrifying as the plane crash.
So you crashed, and so were you unconscious at the time? Were you aware once the crash happened that you had just had a plane wreck?
Yeah, and unfortunately, fortunately for my dad, who was the only other survivor of the crash, he doesn't remember a thing. He doesn't even remember getting into the plane. So I count my blessings on that. For me, unfortunately, because I do have somewhat of an eidetic or photographic memory, I remember every little detail. And it sucks on one hand, but on the other hand, it's almost been a blessing. And I've come to realize that the first couple of years, always being able to remember it, it just seemed like an absolute nightmare playing over and over and over again. But now I kind of consider it as a blessing, because I use that to help propel me forward and dealing with others and helping them overcome issues and things of that nature. So I do kind of consider it a blessing in disguise, obviously. I wouldn't want to wish that on anybody.
Right. So you have this ability to kind of see things second by second, minute by minute, or whatever happened.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How does
and
that
to be able to see the big picture too.
So how does that help you to help others? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Well, by telling my story and by letting people see that, there's different levels of tragedies. Mm-hmm. They're all tragedies, okay? That's how it is. I'm certainly not going to downplay that. But we all experience them in different ways, and we also recover from them in different ways. And by telling our stories to other people, we help to bring them out of the feeling like they're not alone.
Right.
And I think that it's important that I share my story with others to let them see that there's, different levels of tragedies. Mm-hmm. There are really, really, really big ones like catastrophic, where people lose their homes, they lose loved ones. Then there's small tragedies that, while they're still tragedies, there's different levels to it. And by helping to share my story and tell people about, what I've been through in my life, etc., it helps them realize that, sometimes their life isn't so bad, that it could be considerably worse. And it helps to bring a sense of empathy to whatever it is that they want to do in their lives. So, because it helps them really connect with other people. I've had friends who have lost their parents and siblings or even kids to cancer. And I realized what an incredible tragedy that is. I myself lost my mom to the plane crash. I lost my grandmother to Alzheimer's. So, I've seen different things. And even when somebody comes to me and says, hey, I completely lost everything that was on my computer. My business is gone because I lost everything. I help them realize, hey, that's something that you can rebuild. Here's my story. This is how I've rebuilt from something that is, it is definitely worse than a computer crashing, but I'm not belittling that person because it's something that's tragic in their life. Right. And we all need to see, from people's different perspectives. And it just kind of helps put things in perspective with people to say, okay, now we can see what went wrong, what can we fix, what can't be fixed, but how can we recover, move on, and live our lives even better?
Yeah, I get it. And so, story is so powerful in that way. It just really brings perspective. I see that, what you're saying. Mm-hmm. So after the crash, there was a lawsuit. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, the lawsuit, it's pretty typical and pretty standard after any sort of injury or death related to, mechanical equipment and things of that nature. And there's really, not all that much to tell about as far as the actual lawsuit goes. It was a lawsuit. It dealt with courts and depositions and attorneys and things of that nature. It's definitely not fun, but I do sometimes use that lawsuit when I'm talking to business owners about protecting their businesses and things of that nature. Making sure you got the right insurance in place, making sure that your employees are using the right products and the right equipment, and talk about safety and things of that nature, so that when something like that happens, you're prepared for it at least a little bit instead of it catching you off guard. So sometimes I'll talk about that, but a lawsuit's a lawsuit. It's a bunch of paperwork, it's a bunch of attorneys and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah, I think what struck me was just how young you were. You were just 17 when this crash happened, and shortly after 18, and just what you had to go through with that. And then I think also just I was curious about, what caused the crash, and why does the plane just all of a sudden stop? And so apparently there was some mechanical issues there.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was part of that was the bulk of the lawsuit, it sounds like. So
pretty much.
So where did you go from there? You were hospitalized.
Yes, I was in the hospital for 2 days. I was in ICU for 2, mostly because they wanted to make sure that infection didn't set in. Where we had crashed was in an area that was kind of like a sewage runoff. It was not too far from the end of a dead-end road where it was very densely forest and things of that nature. So unfortunately, I did sustain some injuries, most of it involving reconstructive surgery, which I am very fortunate that there was a plastic surgeon on call for the ER to the hospital that I was taken to. You probably can't see it on this video, but I actually have a scar that starts back here and then comes all the way down and then through here. And I consider myself extremely lucky. I've got little wounds all over the place, but I didn't break any bones. I did have a pretty bad concussion, but you know, I still had most of my memory intact. Forgot a lot of school stuff. So I had to basically go back and relearn 4 years of high school as far as the subjects go, but other memories and stuff like that were intact. But I mean, I could have easily have broken my back or lost my eyesight, you know, all sorts of other things could have happened. And the fact that I could have walked away from the crash if the emergency personnel had let me, but they wouldn't let me. So because they were afraid I might have done something to my back and everything else. But I'm eternally grateful to them. So I'm, could have been a heck of a lot worse for me. So I was just going to say, you know, my mom unfortunately died in the crash, as did the pilot who was sitting right next to me. So things could have been much, much, much worse. My dad did in fact walk away from the crash. He was actually able to get out of the wreckage and was able to walk around. He did have like a concussion and doesn't remember anything about it, which is a blessing. I'm glad he doesn't remember it, because that's not something that he needs to remember. So.
Wow. So you had just graduated, is that right?
No, I was actually in my senior year of high school, and it was right in the middle of Christmas vacation, and the week after my birthday was when we were supposed to go back to school, and instead I was trying to recover from the crash, get ready to take my midterms, and to, you know, graduate high school. So.
Okay, so you went back to high school. You had, and I know that you had a lot of big dreams that you had to really kind of shift things. Can you talk about the reason why and what that was?
Well, I had wanted to do music performance as a major in college, and my dream was, because I play a lot of musical instruments, I wanted to basically perform professionally. My instruments are in the double reed family, the oboe and the bassoon, and I was hoping to get a college scholarship on either one of those instruments, go to college, you know, develop my skills, develop my performing skills, and then eventually the long-term dream was to play in an orchestra somewhere in the world, you know, not necessarily in Florida, but somewhere around the world, or to be able to go on tours, you know, and just, you know, spread my passion for music wherever I possibly could. So that was my dream. And unfortunately, after the plane crash, because of all the head issues, there was a bit of like brain swelling that went on, and because of the concussion and all sorts of other issues with it, I was told by several different neurologists, because I kept going to different ones because I wanted a different answer, and they kept giving me the same answer, that basically if I continued to play on a daily basis, that more than likely I would probably die on stage of an aneurysm. So they said, you really need to think about a career change. And that was tough. I mean, that was my dream. I had worked since 7th grade to develop those skills and to figure out, you know, what college I wanted to go to, how much it was going to cost me to go to college, you know, how to get the scholarships, what I needed to do, the referrals I needed, how to, you know, brush up on auditions, and I mean, all these different things. And then all of a sudden it was gone in an instant.
Well, you're quite a planner for 18. So you, I mean, as you said, at junior high, you had this all planned, started planning all this out. Are you a planner? Are you still a planner, or has that changed?
No, well, yes and no. It depends. Certain things, yes, I am an uber control freak and planner freak about certain things. Okay. So like if I'm developing social media plans, marketing plans, websites, or if I'm working on, working with somebody on getting their accounting up and going or putting systems into their business, yeah, that's when the planner in me comes out. But I've also, this event in my life also has forced me to become more adaptable. So it's a good thing and a bad thing. I still like to do spontaneous things. Like my husband and I will take little spontaneous trips here and there, etc. But I'm generally at least planned just a little bit, like making sure we've got enough fuel in the car to be able to go, or like I keep an overnight bag with extra clothes and toothbrushes and stuff like that in case we decide to go a little bit further and then spend the night or something like that, to have a little bit of fun with it. So there's still a little bit of the planning that's involved there, but I've learned to adapt considerably and to pivot when I need to. So it's just changed a bit.
It makes sense. It makes sense. So can you talk a little bit about what you're doing now and how this circumstance, the tragedy, has really formed who you are now?
So the very first thing that I decided to do after graduating high school was, I've always had a love of computers. The first thing I decided to do was, while I was working for a big box retailer and another little job, while I was going to college, etc., was to start a little computer business. So I would teach people, how to do email, how to do basic digital photography back in the early days when it was really starting to come on board and become more popular. I would teach people how to use email, especially like senior citizens. I would get a group of them, like 5 or 6 of them together, and I would teach these little mini classes so that they could contact their kids that were out of state or their grandkids, etc. Wow. And I would also build custom computers for businesses, etc. And I also did some bookkeeping for people on the side using various programs, or even doing it the old-fashioned way by hand. Believe it or not, I still have a client that insists on using physical journals even in 2018. But he's only got about 50 transactions a year, so it's not that big of a deal, and it's good practice, so I don't complain about that. And that kind of got me at least away from music as my sole focus, because it forced me to think about other things, other career paths. And one thing kind of led into another. So it started off with computers, and then, computers led into printing and graphic design, which led more into websites, which then started getting into like social media, getting into marketing. And my commercial customers that I had, I was doing a lot of photography like back in 2010, 2012, 2014. And it was kind of a mix, 50-50 between weddings and commercial clients. And my commercial clients kept asking me to do more, helping them with bookkeeping, helping them with creating marketing plans, working with them on social media, websites, graphic design and branding and all these different things. And it finally came to a head in about late 2014. I had to make a decision. Either I could continue trying to do photography full-time, which if anyone knows anything about the photography industry, it's getting harder and harder and harder to sustain a full-time job with that. And I love photography. It's always going to be a part of my life, and I still do weddings and seniors and stuff like that. But I do it for fun now instead of, making it my livelihood. So that's when I basically pivoted my entire business and went straight into marketing and social media and accounting and business systems and business coaching full time. And that's when I was like, okay, this is the direction I'm going to go, and I'm going to throw myself into it, and life is good, and we're going to kind of go from there. So that's what I ended up doing. So I started with like marketing and stuff back when I was about 20, but it didn't really start gaining a lot of steam until I was about 25, 26.
So you do a variety of things still, or you're pretty much on marketing? Is it like I saw somewhere you said you do business. So is it kind of like a mixture?
It is a mixture. And I've realized over the years, everybody says, oh, you need to niche down. You need to niche down. You need to, specialize in one thing. Well, Yes and no. I mean, it's great for people that are like cardiologists and neurosurgeons, for them to specialize in one thing. But as a small business owner, I can't do just a single thing. As a business owner, I have to be able to do everything. I have to do my own bookkeeping. I do my own marketing. I do my own sales. I have a little e-commerce store that I do all the shipping and fulfillment myself. I don't have somebody to do that for me. It's me and myself. And sometimes I rope my family into helping me with a couple of things here and there. But it's because of that diversity that I can help others start to see the big picture.
Yeah.
A lot of the small business owners that I've worked with, generally they have less than 25 employees, and they get so ingrained in doing things a certain way that they don't look to the future. And that's one of the biggest things that I do for them as a part of my coaching, etc., is that I help them look towards the future and say, where do you want to go with this? Yeah. I understand you've got your passion, but where do you want to go with this? What do you want to do? What do you have your goals for the future? How can I help you get there? Do you eventually want to sell the business? Are your kids interested in taking it over? And I help them work through all of these different things while protecting themselves through legal incorporations by, helping them avoid audits, making sure things are being done right, helping them hire and fire the right people and fire the wrong people. And I got to admit that sometimes is a guilty pleasure, being able to fire somebody who's taking advantage of employers unfairly. And I'm not talking about the occasional sneak on your phone for like Facebook or something. I'm talking about people who actually steal from the companies and stuff like that. It is satisfying firing somebody like that. I will admit it. So sometimes people will bring me in just to hire and just to fire, things of that nature. So I do a variety of services for small business owners because as small business owners, we don't wear just one hat. We may be the CEO of our companies, but we don't wear just one hat. We don't have 500 employees at our disposal that we can say, okay, Jane down in the accounting department, I want you to figure out why we're spending so much in these categories, and then just let them handle it. We don't always necessarily have the cash flow to be able to do that. And, sometimes we don't want to give up that control because this business is not only our passion, but it's our livelihood, and giving control, something along those lines. It's scary trusting other people, especially when you're not sure if you've got the right person. So yeah. I'll work with small business owners and, doing that kind of a thing, putting systems into place to make it easier to onboard people and to make them a part of the company and make them feel like family so that they stay loyal, they understand, there's good communication between employees and the owner and, all sorts of different things. And I really think that it's because of that diversification that, yes, I can charge higher prices for it, but it's more satisfying to me when I get to help them in more than just one area. I'm not just simply saying, okay, here's your marketing plan for the next 12 months, go and do it. I give them that accountability and I help them with it so that they feel successful. And that to me is very rewarding. And I love being able to do that.
Well, it sounds like you do have a lot of diverse skills and all that. Do you outsource anything? I mean, it sounds like you do everything.
I do outsource some stuff. I do have a degree in graphic and web design, but even with all of the changes on the web, dealing with like Facebook ads or LinkedIn ads or, social media, sometimes I will outsource some of that stuff to people that do super niche down. Like I have one lady who does Facebook ads, and that's all she does. She keeps up with the trends. She keeps up with the security issues. She keeps up with their requirements, and that's literally all she does is Facebook ads day in, day out, and she loves it. She doesn't want to have to do anything else. So if I get somebody who really wants to do more than just some basic Facebook ads and they want to know like better analytics, they've got a big dream or they've got a super large budget, then I'll bring her in as a part of my group and she'll work with them one-on-one on those Facebook ads. Likewise, with some of the website stuff, if it's beyond my capability simply because I haven't learned it yet, or somebody wants something that is super, super, super custom, integrated, like a custom website, which I can certainly do. That's not a problem. But if they want a back end that the students can log in and be able to do different things, and then they've got a separate internal network for all their employees that requires custom programming in JavaScript or something like that, I'll bring a specialist on board that can make the process go faster. I can still do it, but like JavaScript is not my native language. It just isn't. Yeah. So it would take me longer to do it, which would cost the client more money. So for cost savings, I'll bring in an expert that can turn it around in a week instead of me doing it over the course of 4 weeks, because I have to look up, okay, this is what that function does, and okay, this is how I get them to talk to each other and stuff like that.
I mean, it makes good business sense to not have to figure out everything. If you have somebody that and all that, I think your clients probably really appreciate that. So, and you talked about being a small business, but you actually been in the business for 20 years. And I read that you have helped your clients with over $40 million worth of sales. Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
What kind of clients do you find are drawn to you, that are drawn to your story and drawn to the service that you provide?
I would probably say that out of all of the clients that I've dealt with over the years, the ones that probably get attracted to me the most are the burnt out business owners. They want to do more. They want to reinvigorate their businesses. They're looking to expand, but they're still looking for that elusive work-life balance, etc., which, you know, the thought process on that is still out. Some people say there's no such thing. Other people say that it does exist, but you have to work for it. Right. And I'm definitely in that camp, that it can exist, but you got to work for it. And part of that has to do with bringing people into the company to trust them to do stuff for you, to not take advantage of you. You know, there is a balance there, definitely.
So they trust you. They trust you. So they've been doing it alone. They're not feeling they're having this balance. They're feeling like all their life is going into their business and they're kind of burning out. So they bring you in, a fresh person, so they can be freed up to do what they love.
Absolutely. And that's the first thing that I do, is I figure out, you know, what is it that isn't serving you anymore? What are you still doing that is making your life difficult? Sometimes they don't need anything more than a different accounting system. So I'll help switch them over. Like I've had several people that were on QuickBooks Desktop that they didn't need to be, and they were frustrated with their bookkeeping. They were spending 10 hours a week just trying to figure out their bookkeeping, and they don't have any products. So I'm like, why are you on QuickBooks? They're like, well, that's what my accountant recommended and says that I need to use. I'm like, you don't need to use QuickBooks just because your accountant says so. I said, you know, you need to use a system that works for you. So I will evaluate their systems. I'll help them figure out a better workflow so they can spend less time on it. Maybe sometimes it's a little bit more of an investment, but the time that they get back to spend with their family, or to develop new products for their clients, or to spend time talking to their clients, I mean, that's a biggie right there. You know, just getting to know their clients so that they can service them better, which in turn makes more loyal customers, which bring them more business so that they can hire other people to do some of the other things to free up their time. So it's kind of this cycle, you know, that starts to repeat themselves, and you can either make the cycle go up the hill, or the cycle is going to push you down the hill. So I help them with that, and just try to figure out, you know, what it is that they want to do. You know, maybe they don't even need to be in that business anymore. If they're so burnt out that they don't love what they do, and they think, they wake up every morning just saying to themselves, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm so tired of it. You know, sometimes it's time to literally cut it loose, to say it's time for a completely different change. Other times it's, we need to bring somebody on board to lessen the load. And then they start to fall in love with their business all over again. But
either way, they're making a decision, and that's got to be better than just being stuck where they are. They either make the decision to let it go, or bring somebody in, or just keep doing what they're doing. But it's like having that point where they can actually make that decision. That's powerful.
And a lot of times they are just so burnt out that they can't see the forest for the trees anymore. They are so burnt out that they've backed themselves into a corner. They're facing the corner. They've put blinders on. They've got earmuffs on. They can't hear or see anything new just because the overwhelm has hit them. They're burnt out. and they're too tired to even think. And sometimes they just need somebody to come in and say, okay, let's figure out what you really want and let's start exploring ideas. They just need somebody to not only hold them accountable, but to also hold their hand and say, hey, you're not alone. You are not alone in this, and I can help you do this. I can help give you some new ideas. I can help you figure out what's going to make you fall in love with your business again, so that you wake up every morning excited to jump out of bed and say, I get to go talk to my clients today. I get to go work with fantastic people. So sometimes that's all they need is just a little hand holding, next, and say, hey, we got this.
Well, it sounds wonderful. It sounds like a wonderful service. How do they find you? You want to tell us how people can find you?
Oh, I'm pretty much all over the web. Of course, I have my website, and my company name is Marketing is Not Selling. Mm-hmm. And there's a funny story behind why I named my company that, and I'll get into that in a second. But I'm like on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Google+.
So they just look for Marketing is Not Selling. That pretty much they'll find you. Is that?
Yeah, marketingisnotselling.com. That is literally my website name and everything, and anyone can contact me anytime. Send me smoke signals, call, text, whatever.
Okay, so I want to kind of tie this together. So I know that you had a lot of times when people go through tragedies, they have something to hold on to. Mm-hmm. You had this 10-word phrase that you held on to, and it wasn't something that you got after. It actually someone back when you're in school, right, before this accident happened.
I actually got it. I actually got the inspiration for that about 4 months after the crash.
After the crash. Okay.
Yes.
So tell us about that phrase. Tell us how that helped you through this and how it can help your clients.
Well, I will say that for any of you that are still listening and watching, first off, thank you very much for listening to my story. I know I can be a little long-winded sometimes, but if there's only one thing that you take from this whole thing, it's this little phrase. And I'll go into the story about it in just a second here, but the phrase is, if it is to be, it is up to me. Okay? And the story behind that is in high school, I was a member of Key Club, which is the high school version of Kiwanis International. It's like the baby brother of it. And I was very much involved with Key Club and doing service projects, and I absolutely loved it. And my senior year of high school, I was a lieutenant governor for the state of Florida. And I had to go to the annual conference, which was a blast, 10,000 Key Clubbers from around the state, all having a grand time and getting to know each other and, helping to promote community service in the world. And one morning I came down to breakfast because I was actually the chairman of the convention committee, so I got 0 sleep that weekend. It was awesome, though. It was totally awesome. So in the morning time of one of the days, I was having breakfast downstairs early morning. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning. And I was in the restaurant and I was having my coffee and my breakfast and everything. And the then Florida governor of Kiwanis International for the state of Florida, his name was Van Banks. And he saw me sitting there by myself and there's like nobody else in the restaurant. So he asked if he could join me. And I said, sure, absolutely. I mean, come on. The guy's the governor of Kiwanis. I would love to, talk with him and pick his brain a little bit. And so we started talking about different things, and he had heard what had happened with the plane crash and everything. And actually, believe it or not, he'd sent me a little stuffed teddy bear with a Kiwanis pin on it, which I still have to this day, which is awesome. So we talked a little bit more, and he basically said, there's one thing that's kept me going all these years, because he had been through some tragedies of his own that we had talked about, etc. And that's when he said, these 10 two-letter words, if you can hold on to it, he goes, they will change your life. And that's when he told me, if it is to be, it is up to me. Mm-hmm. And when he told me that, it was just like the light bulb went on in my head, and I was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely right. So I've kind of held on to that as my mantra over all of these years, that whatever life that I want, I have the chance to change it.
Mm-hmm.
So even if I get myself into something, I can still choose to get out of it. And if those of you that are watching and listening, get the book, you'll find out a little bit more about my bad mistakes number 1, 2, and 3. And then of course my great decisions number 1, 2, and 3, because I talk about it a little bit more in the book itself.
Right.
And I've really kept that mantra as my own motto. Basically, I've adopted it. It's a part of everything that I do, and it's something that I use with all of my clients over the years. And I like to modify it just a little bit when I'm talking to people, because obviously if something's up to me, then it's also up to you. So you can change your life. So for everybody else, I say, if it is to be, it is up to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've got the power to change your future. You've got the power to change your destiny and to live the life that you want on your terms.
And do you feel like you've done that?
Yes and no. I do feel like I have in some ways, but there's still so much more out of life that I want. There's still things, everyone talks about their big bucket list and everything else. And I'm like, okay, I've checked a lot of things off of my bucket list, but my bucket list is still growing. Yeah. So there's still things to do. It's an ever-evolving process, and I'm just so excited to see, what happens from here on out.
Well, I so appreciate the story and your vulnerability. I know this is a very vulnerable story, and just being able to help others to achieve their dreams, their hopes and dreams is great. I know that you have a gift for us. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that before we end?
Yes, definitely. So as a part of the book, if you buy the book, you'll get the information on how to access this. Mm-hmm. I've actually got a little 5-step mini course that I'm offering to everybody, that basically you can sign up for it, and it's going to help you, for those of you who feel stuck or feel burnt out, or maybe you even feel a little depressed, that life isn't going the way that you want. And the book, of course, is all about mental toughness, and everyone needs something to hang on to, something in their life, whether it's God, whether it's a phrase, whether it's a passion, whatever the case may be. You need something that is uniquely yours to hang on to. And I love helping people find that. Some of my former clients, the ones that were completely burnt out, I had a lady, she was doing $10 million a year in sales, was ready to completely close her company, just shut it down. She's like, I'm tired of this. She actually took my motto and kind of incorporated it into her own life and her company, made her couple of employees, adopt it as well. And that unique sense of ownership of that one little phrase, that one little thing,
powerful,
help propel her forward. And she completely revamped her company. She's now doing like $40-50 million a year in sales, and that's after I helped her, do what we needed to do for her company. So that was really exciting to see, her fall in love with life again. Mm-hmm. And so this little 5-step mini course, it's totally free, doesn't cost you anything except time and desire. Your time and your desire to move forward. So every day you'll get, it's like I said, it's done over a 5-day process. And every day is just one little tiny step, one little thing, one little, you could call it advice, you could call it a stepping stone, whatever you want to call it. Every day is one little thing to help get you moving. Because when we feel stuck, when we feel overwhelmed and burnt out and we're not sure what to do, sometimes we become so paralyzed, we can't move forward. We can't even move backward. We can't move anywhere. We're just stuck. And the whole purpose of this is to get you unstuck. It's to get you moving in a direction. It's to get you going down that trail. Now, the trail is eventually going to fork, and you're going to have to make a decision which way you want to go. But some people get paralyzed at that fork. Pick a direction. It's the whole point of the course is so that you pick a direction, you get going, you figure out, okay, maybe this isn't the path that I want to do. Okay, well, guess what? There's another fork in the road coming up. Let's take a different one. Let's go a different direction. Or sometimes you need to forge your own path. So have some fun with it. Enjoy life, and the whole point of the mini course is to help get you going on that.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah. I think I'm going to end there. Unless there's anything else, is there anything you wanted to add?
I just wanted to say, thank you to everyone who's come and seen the videos on the virtual summit. I mean, that shows that you want change in your life. Mm-hmm. And, there's other people in the world who need to hear this kind of a message. So please feel free to share, the summit with them. There's sign-up links and things of that nature. Anyone who has decided to purchase the recordings, know that we're not making any profit on this summit. We're doing this because it's our passion and because we want to share with the rest of the world. So all of the money that we take in for the recordings, they're being donated to charity. And so you're going to be helping to do the world some good just by taking that step forward. And sometimes that step is really, really scary. But I can say, at least for myself, if not for everybody else that's participating in the summit and that participated in the book itself, you can reach out to any of us, especially me. Like I said, smoke signals, text, phone, email, whatever, reach out to me and I will help get you, started on that path to success. Right. And sometimes, for some of you, all you need to know is that there is somebody that's on your side that can help you build up that mental toughness to be able to say, yes, I can keep going because I know I've at least got one person on my side. For some of you, you're going to need some more hand-holding. Admit that it's okay. Okay? I've needed help over the years. I can't do it all myself. I know that. And I know going forward, I'm going to hire coaches to help me reach the next level. I'm going to hire people to help me with my business. I'm going to hire people for other people's businesses because we can't do it alone. That's all there is to it. We can't do it alone. So reach out. If it's not to us, then somebody else that you trust and say, hey, I need your help with this. Whether it's just organizing your schedule a little bit more or getting started on that path to living the life that you want. All it takes is a single step. That begins your journey. Okay? The destination is great, but let me tell you, just having fun on the journey, that's what makes life worth living. So reach out, definitely.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Sean. Thank you so much for being our interviewer for this virtual summit.
My pleasure.
And for those of you who don't know, Sean also has a chapter in the book, so you definitely want to read her story as well. It's juicy. Definitely. So if you haven't gotten your copy of the book, definitely be on the lookout for it. We'll have links to the various pages and everything as in the back end if you signed up for the recordings, as well as some other places we'll post it up there so that you guys can order the book. And believe me, the book is definitely going to be a powerful game changer for many of you. So buy one for yourself and buy one for somebody who could definitely use the inspiration.
It'd be a great gift, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. And Christmas is coming.
That's true. That's true. All right. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sean.
I'm going to pause.